focus. All right, what if Twitter wasn't Tumblr? So I'm gonna have to. Oh, first of all, click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, join the channel, support the channel, on Coffee, the various other links to join the Gab, and especially join the Telegram. So I have to explain what furries are and these, what Tumblr and Twitter is, and the anthropomorphic animals of Tumblr, which is why you see these little weird icons with the kids are not all right if they're dressing up. So Tumblr was an art, and it is still an art page type of thing, but they changed their terms of service a few years ago. They used to have this like furry anime stuff, which are these anthropomorphic animal human chimera hybrid type things. People dress up like coyotes, and they kind of use it as for prurient interest. It's just the grossest thing you can imagine. People dressing up in costumes. It's like you don't need to do all that to a pizza. It's just like plain cheese pizza is just fine. Maybe with a few pineapples. It's like, who gets more triggered, pineapple people or pitbull people? Anyway, so Tumblr changed their terms of service, and that prurient stuff got kicked off. And as it turns out, they started going to Twitter. It's not the preferred platform, but it does offer some of the similar things. And Twitter allows adult content, just the most graphic stuff. I'm not sure why Twitter allows it, because it's like 99.9% of the people on Twitter don't care if it's on there, and probably more people would say like, yeah, we don't need to see this on Twitter. Like, you don't need it at all. It doesn't seem to be a big selling point, so it's kind of weird that they would have that on there. But I guess if you start filtering that out, you have to start filtering out the OnlyFans girls who are effectively ladies of negotiable affections, sort of thing. So those people got kicked off Tumblr. They went to Twitter. And then Twitter started getting weirder and more left-wing than it already is because of this influence of these, I don't know, deviant art, Tumblr, furry, anime type stuff. Like a couple minutes into it now, they sexualize drawings of like anthropomorphic animals, like coyote people, banging rabbit people. It's just the most bizarre thing. And it's like, I assume it's just stupid kids doing stupid kid stuff. They'll probably grow out of it. So Twitter got kind of weird with this inclusion of the Tumblr people, all because Tumblr changed the term of service for whatever reason. And believe it or not, at one time, so did OnlyFans. It's like, I'm not quite sure what was really going on behind the scenes with that. Anyway, so you see a lot of these people on Twitter who, Twitter's an addiction it's addiction to everybody. I was going to say to the left more than the right, but there are people on the right who are just as addicted to Twitter, who are like these, I don't know, like back in the days of Trump and the MAGA people, they're people who would build up they're like right-wing soccer mom types who would build up Twitter accounts to like huge numbers. And I guess they're still on there now, and a lot of them have gone to other platforms. But anyway, so that's why you see like Twitter has gotten so weird over the past few years, and people are kind of, even people who are on the left are looking at like these anime, these furry people, and being like, Twitter was a lot cooler without these people on it. Because they're just out of their minds, so far left. Anyway, so what if Elon Musk? Okay, so what happened? Elon Musk is buying positions in Twitter, and then the other shareholders are Vanguard and BlackRock and the guy Jack Dorsey himself and a bunch of other companies, and so they're trying to negotiate future purchases, and because of that, Vanguard. Probably holds a bunch of mutual funds. I don't remember. The Vanguard 500. That's right. They're increasing their share positions too, because they suspect that they're going to be bought out, and so they're going to be bought out at a higher share price. So they'll make a few $1 billion or a few $100 million at least in the meantime. So, but people think that Vanguard is coming to save their day. It's like, that's not quite what they're doing. So anyway, what if Twitter wasn't Tumblr? What if Twitter just wasn't freaking as lame as it is now? And it is. It's really, really lame. And it's, in case you're completely unaware, they have you think it's a vertical microblogging platform with limited file storage, but they censor people on the right much more so than censor people on the left. And when they do, everything you put online on their servers is instantly gone. I'm sorry. I think you have like 10 days to recover files and stuff. But from kind of a social media historical sense. It's kind of a weird thing where you have part of the discourse that's being censored because, politics is downstream from culture. So it's not such a good thing. And it's like you would think our representatives, those 535 people, would have some say on the side of more free speech is better than it's a private company. Yeah, but I value the free speech I value the liberty of the individual over $1 billion tech company. Yeah, easily. I'll easily, if you want me to make a binary decision, for sure. The individual liberty matters much more so than $1 billion tech company that doesn't have any competition. There's others. There's Gab and Parler and Twitter and all these other kind of things. They're like less than 1% of Twitter's outreach. It's so important that if you're running for office, if you're constitutionally protected activities, and you're not on Twitter, it's going to be a huge detriment to you exercising your civil liberties. So something like Twitter has so many state contacts that it should effectively be granted First Amendment protected activities. You should have First Amendment rights to free expression on Twitter like you would in the town square, because effectively it is the new town square. And it's weird that those 500 people who are represented us haven't seemed to find that this was important. So Elon Musk is taking over some Twitter positions. And, the idea is that he'll make it a little bit more fair. So what happens if he does, and he does exercise some influence? Well, immediately what would happen to stuff like Parler, Getter, Truth Social, I think Frank has something out there, and there's probably a few more of those really mid-tier normie type of stuff. What happens to all those is they go out of business instantly. Getter is probably the biggest one. Getter, Truth, and Frank would be like, you'd be out of business. Like everyone who's building a platforms over there would just come back to Twitter, because Twitter's the massive platform. There'd be no reason to stay on those alt, like Getter type of platform, which has got like about 6 million users now. But the thing is, probably not Gab, which I think has about 3 million users. And Gab is actually very, very important, because I think most people on Gab are still too far out for Twitter. But yeah, it absolutely will hurt Gab. Gab's got people from all over the map, but I will say there's very few people on the far left are on Gab. If they're there, they're only there to troll. So it's got people from the furthest right, but most of the people on Gab are moderate left, moderate right. They're right in the middle of the political bell curve. It's just that the people on the right of center would be censored off of mainstream social media for dropping a word that would just get you censored. But there's no consequences to that on Gab. If you don't like what someone says, if they're dropping some kind of derogatory terms, you just block them or you mute them, but they don't get kicked off the platform. You only get kicked off the platform for adult content, or anything that would be actively illegal in your country, something like a threat of malignant behavior. So I think Gab is still going to be all right, but it will still hurt it. But it's going to put the others out of business. So some scenarios is that Elon gets enough power to change the platform to treat people on the left and right fairly. Just enforce the rules fairly across the board. It's not like that nowadays. You can literally people on Twitter will do tests where one person will say something, X will say something about Y, and it'll be fine. And it'll get like 40,000 likes, and you can have like 100 people report it as hate speech. But then Y says the same thing about X, and they get kicked off the platform. People literally screenshot it, and they show the disparity in treatment. And then the person might get their account back. If Candace Owens has done this for different accounts, it shows that clearly there's a bias against certain political ideologies and along ethnic lines. It's really ugly. Like Twitter is a really ugly place, and the only reason it's important is because politics is downstream from these social media platforms, or from culture. So this would have a huge impact on bringing attention to what you see on social media is this anti-white misandry, anti-conservative type of narrative. It'd be really interesting to see if Alex Jones and Trump came back, and because if Twitter if he gets control of Twitter and he makes it more of a free speech platform, then there'd be no reason for Trump to have his own platform, which is, I don't know how much money he's put into it, hopefully not too much. And because Twitter is, like, the infrastructure in Twitter is already in place. It's people on Twitter who are terrified of this. They go, why don't you build your own? Why don't you build your own? It's like, why, when you could just buy the platform for, or at least leverage it with a few $1 billion that he's got sitting around. It's a premier platform. The tech is already in place. If he could buy it, I never thought it would. I never thought he would go down this road, but I'm not one of those. Like, there are people who dedicate entire social media channels just to following Elon Musk, and I don't really know the first thing about him, other than my neighbors all have Teslas. But I mean, California, where we had like a 2-week period where the power was more off than on, which is kind of like, I think the next cars might be a hybrid, but definitely not going to be a Tesla. Not that I could afford it. Anyway, all people are looking for is just have the rules clearly laid out and treat people equally. It's not that much to ask. So the other side of this is Elon Musk is kind of ConOps incorporated, in that ConOps means you allow it's like the Dave Shapiros or the Dave Rubins and the Shapiros and even a bunch of other guys on the right who are, as long as they're on the mainstream social media platform, what happens is there's this narrow spectrum of allowed opinions, and you can fiercely debate within that spectrum, but nothing to the left or to the right of that spectrum is allowed. And that's the stuff that's to the outside that spectrum of allowable opinion is the stuff that's obviously most important. That's why they're ConOps. We have people like the Rubins and the Shapiros who are try to get this right wing following. And the only thing I can say to that is more and more people are kind of waking up to that kind of behavior. So ConOps social media is evil because it controls discourse and it censors the important things that need to be discussed. I don't think Elon is a free speech guy, and if I'm wrong, I hope I am. That changes everything. I mean, at like a World War III, Civil War II level, which I suppose is already going to happen. It's like people always go back to history and said, well, what if we changed one little thing? The events would probably be going to carry out no matter what the Archduke was deleted or not. Events were probably going to be carried out anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode.